Have you ever wondered how Moses, a humble shepherd, was chosen to lead the Israelites out of Egypt? It all starts with doubt and a miraculous sign. In the heart of the desert, a conversation of epic proportions was taking place. Moses, a simple shepherd, was wrestling with doubt and fear. He questioned his worthiness, his ability to convince the Israelites that he was chosen by the Lord. "What if they do not believe me or listen to me?" he asked, echoing a question many of us have whispered in our moments of insecurity. God, in his infinite wisdom, didn't dismiss Moses' doubts. Instead, he offered a sign. In the hand of Moses was a staff, a tool of his trade, as common to him as the desert sand. But in the hands of the Lord, it became a symbol of divine power. At his command, Moses threw the staff on the ground and it transformed into a snake. Fear gripped Moses as he ran from it. But God wasn't finished. He commanded Moses to take hold of the snake, and as he did, it turned back into a staff. This was no mere trick. This was a demonstration of God's power, a foreshadowing of the wonders to come. It was a lesson in faith and a reminder that with God nothing is impossible. But the Lord wasn't done showcasing his power. He had more signs up his divine sleeve. Imagine the shock as Moses' hand, once strong and healthy, turned leprous white. A startling transformation, to say the least. This was the second sign given to Moses, a visual testament to the immense power of God. At the Lord's command, Moses tucked his hand inside his cloak. When he pulled it out, it was afflicted with leprosy, as white as snow. This was not just a spectacle for Moses, but a profound symbol of God's might. The hand, a symbol of human action and agency, was rendered powerless. It was a stark reminder that without divine guidance, human efforts can be as futile as a leprous hand. But the demonstration didn't end there. God commanded Moses to put his hand back into his cloak, and when he removed it, it was restored. As quickly as the affliction had appeared, it vanished. This was a clear display of God's ability to not only inflict, but also to heal. The symbolism of this sign was multi-layered. It served as a vivid reminder of the power of God, a power that can bring both disease and restoration. It also underscored the necessity of trust in God's plan. For Moses, this was a lesson in obedience and faith. Yet, even after such a clear display of divine might, Moses still had reservations. Ever felt inadequate, underprepared, or simply not good enough for a task? So did Moses. Hesitation is an all too familiar sentiment, one that even the great Moses felt despite witnessing incredible signs. Moses, standing before God, felt a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. He was unsure if he could carry out the monumental task of leading his people out of Egypt. His doubt was rooted not in disbelief of God's power, but rather in a profound self-doubt. He questioned his ability to convince others of his divine encounter, saying, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." But God, in his boundless wisdom, reassured Moses. He reminded him that it was he, the Lord, who gave human beings their mouths, who made them deaf or mute, who gave them sight or made them blind. And then God made a promise to provide Moses with the right words and guidance. "Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say," he told Moses. However, even after such divine reassurances, Moses still felt unease, still felt the weight of his perceived inadequacies. He pleaded with God, asking him to send someone else. This is a testament to the depth of his doubt, a doubt so profound that even God's promise to aid him could not fully dispel it. And so we see the reluctant leader Moses, filled with self-doubt, yet chosen by God for a task of great magnitude. His story serves as a reminder that even the greatest among us can feel inadequate, but it also highlights the strength that can be found in God's promises and guidance. But even divine reassurances sometimes aren't enough to quell human doubt. Sometimes we all need a little help from our friends, or in Moses' case, his brother. See, Moses was not known for his eloquence. He was a man of action, not words. But God, in his infinite wisdom, had a plan for Moses that required a voice. And who better to lend that voice than Aaron, Moses' own brother? Aaron was not just Moses' brother, he was his voice, his mouthpiece. Now, this wasn't just a case of nepotism or brotherly love. It was divine intervention. God knew Aaron's ability to speak well, and he put it to good use. And it wasn't just about speaking, it was about speaking truth, about speaking God's words. God didn't just choose Aaron for his eloquence, he chose him because he was willing, because he was ready to serve. Aaron was not just a speaker, he was a servant, a helper. He was there to support his brother, to aid him in his divine mission. And he did so with grace and humility. You see, in God's grand design, we all have a role to play. We all have unique skills, unique abilities that God can use for his purpose. And it's not about being the best or the most eloquent or the most capable. It's about being willing, about being ready to serve. And that's exactly what Aaron was. He was willing, he was ready. He was there for his brother, there to lend his voice, his skills, his abilities for the greater good. Aaron was a testament to the power of brotherly love, of divine purpose, of God's grand design. So what can we learn from Aaron? We can learn that we all have a role to play, that we all have unique skills and abilities that can be used for a greater purpose. We can learn the power of being willing, of being ready to serve. And above all, we can learn the importance of supporting those around us, of being there for our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our family. With Aaron by his side and the staff of God in his hand, Moses was ready to embark on his divine mission. Returning to a place of past pain can be daunting, but Moses was not alone. As he prepared to journey back to Egypt, Moses was armed not only with the staff of God, but also with divine signs and wonders. He had been tasked with a mission of liberation, and he was ready to rise to the occasion. Moses had spent many years in Midian, far from the hustle and bustle of Egypt. He had a simple life as a shepherd, living with his father-in-law Jethro, his wife Zipporah, and his sons. But now he was being called back to the land of his birth, the place of his people's suffering. He approached Jethro and requested his blessing to return to Egypt, to see if any of his kin were still alive. Jethro, understanding the gravity of the situation, wished him well. The Lord had assured Moses that those who sought his life in Egypt were now dead. So he packed his belongings, put his wife and sons on a donkey, and began the journey back to Egypt. In his hand he held the staff of God, a symbol of the divine power that had been bestowed upon him. On their way to Egypt, Moses and his family made a stop at a lodging place. Here an incident occurred that underscored the importance of obedience to God's commands. The Lord, angered by Moses' neglect of the covenant of circumcision, sought to kill him, but Zipporah, Moses' wife, intervened, performing the circumcision on their son and saving Moses' life. It was a stark reminder of the gravity of their mission and the necessity of adhering to God's laws. As Moses continued his journey, he held in his heart the Lord's instructions. He was to perform before Pharaoh all the wonders that God had given him the power to do. The Lord, however, had forewarned that he would harden Pharaoh's heart, that he would not let the people go. Moses was to convey to Pharaoh that Israel was God's firstborn son, and if Pharaoh refused to let Israel go, God would kill Pharaoh's firstborn son. The journey back to Egypt was fraught with challenges, both physical and spiritual, yet Moses was not deterred. He was driven by a divine purpose, armed with the power of God and spurred on by the promise of his people's freedom. Meanwhile, Aaron, Moses' brother, was on his way to meet Moses. The Lord had instructed Aaron to go into the wilderness to meet his brother. Together they would stand before Pharaoh, ready to deliver God's message and lead their people to freedom. And so, armed with divine signs and his brother at his side, Moses was ready to confront Pharaoh and lead his people to freedom.